morning. I'm Barry Silverberg, Director of the Center for Nonprofit Studies at Austin Community College, and welcome to Civil Society, where we explore issues affecting our communal well-being through a nonprofit lens. We're a proud partner of ACC TV, but given COVID-19, we continue to operate virtually for this, our 5th season. This episode, which is being recorded during Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, is part of our series on the Asian Pacific Islander experience in Austin, which includes people from at least 25 countries who represent 40 different ethnic groups. This diverse community makes up at least 8% of Austin's population and is among the fastest growing groups in Austin. Asian Americans are often overlooked. Partly this can be attributed to the model minority myth, the assumption that all Asians are wealthy and highly educated and therefore not needing social services. At the same time, as we all know, we're experiencing a horrible surge in anti-Asian prejudice and violence that we'll explore in today's conversation with Amy Mock. Amy is founder and CEO of the Asian American Cultural Center and the president of the Asian American Community Partnership. Born in Hong Kong, she came to the United States in 1975. As her online bio narrative says, and I quote, Amy is a psychotherapist by formal education and received her Bachelor of Science in Human Services and her Master of Education in Community and Mental Health Counseling from Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. Amy was a therapist at the South Cove Community Health Center in Boston's Chinatown before moving to Austin in 1983 with her husband, who was a professor of computer science at the University of Texas at Austin. She has been deeply involved in community service, both locally and nationally, championing education, cultural diversity, and women's health issues. She was president of the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, and she's also served on the boards of the Austin People's Community Clinic, the Austin Children's Museum, the American Association of American Women, of University Women, the Capital Area United Way, and the Long Center for Performance Arts. She has been chair of the Telecommunications Commission of the City of Austin and was a member of the Grievance Committee of the Texas Bar Association. Amy was appointed to serve as the vice chair for the 2006 Bond Election Advisory Committee for the City of Austin and was appointed to serve on as one of the tri-chairs of the 2008 Citizen Advisory Committee for AISD. Nationally, she served on the National Advisory Panel on Violence Against Women and was vice president of the board of the 80-20 Committee, which is a National Asian American Political Action Committee. Damn, she's busy. Amy currently serves on Austin's Art Commission, the board of KLRU, and Capital of Texas Public Telecommunications Council. She's a member of the Austin Area Research Organization and serves on the Austin ADL board. Amy is a leader in promoting cultural understanding and diversity. All Central Texans are the beneficiary of her passion for social justice and her active efforts to facilitate positive social changes. I'm exhausted just reading her background. Yet she's a very energetic woman. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you for this conversation.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for being here. So before we go any further, let's explore Amy. Tell us a little about yourself, talk about growing up in Hong Kong and coming to the United States.
I was born into a very big family. My father actually had 2 wives, and we have 9 children altogether. And as you know, Hong Kong was a British colony, and I was sent to a Catholic school that was run by the Italian nuns. But you know, we have the benefit of both the British and the European culture, and also China is right next door. So 99.9% of the people in Hong Kong are Chinese. But we certainly have experienced colonialism, you know. So it is really not about the number of people you have. It is really about the power you hold. You know, I remember when I was very young that we went to the post office And then all the Chinese will be lining up. And then if there's someone who's Caucasian, who walk into the door, and even the staff behind the counter who were Chinese will wave them over so they can skip the line. So from very early on, I felt, why is it this way, but I didn't have the language to talk about it. But so I was very impacted by the civil rights movement in this country. And I just mentioned to you that I was very impacted by the movie The Giant, because that movie addressed racism, sexism, classism, and all the ism, just because how you were born, where you were born and all that. So I with the Catholic teaching, I was sent, with the nuns every weekend to a public hospital to read and write letter for the terminal ill patients, and it wasn't pretty, the sight, you have had injury, you have people who were seriously ill. But for some reason, even at, 14, I'm talking about high school, I was not afraid, because the nun have gave us a very good orientation. And they said that you are here to give these people a good day. So I felt very much empowered that even at 14, starting at 14, I was able to make positive, impact on people who are dying. So I was, maybe this is just the early education and training that I can utilize what I have, my resources, my time, my skills and knowledge to really make positive impact on people. So it was a budding, type of seed. So it's really not until I came to this country, when I came here for college, that I finally find an environment that share my values. So I was empowered to be an individual and to enjoy my liberty and to find the language. I have good mentors. Not that many Asian American mentors, but I have an African American mentor and a Jewish woman, actually, who has really changed my life. Then we can talk about it later. But some in my life journey, I'm just so grateful to have so many good friends and mentors who have impacted, my life. And it makes my journey so much richer, and have so much learning experience. I'm just so grateful, just so grateful, that I knew, even though my husband was male chauvinist, because I have seen how my mother had to put up with a whole lot. And I was so angry about it, but I was so spoiled. You see, I was so lucky. I was born in December. My father is a business person. So during the holidays, the business was blooming. So I was being perceived as the lucky charm. I mean, this is the superstitious thing, So I basically brought in a lot of profit for his business. So even though I'm a daughter, but I was so spoiled, and nobody dared to touch this lucky charm. So I was basically spoiled by the authority figure of the family. So it really, you cannot have more than such empowerment. So I found my voice, because I know nobody can touch me. And I actually spoke up for my mother, to my dad, and he was shocked. And then everybody was sitting at the dinner table. It was like, oh my goodness, And what was the daddy going to do? But daddy just say, oh, let's just eat, you know? So from that day on, I think I was about 5 or 6. I knew from that day on that I have a voice that is not just for myself, you know, I can really speak for people who are oppressed, you know, including my mother. It is really amazing. So I truly believe in early childhood education, you know, and I truly believe in unconditional love, you know, because I felt it, you know, when I was growing up, just because I was born in December. and of course now with my husband, you know, is unconditional love is just so important.
That's a phenomenal story. Absolutely phenomenal. So
Thank you.
you use the past tense about your husband being a chauvinist. I'm assuming that you've educated him to operate in a better fashion.
Oh no, I meant my dad was a
Oh, your
chauvinist.
dad. Oh, okay.
My husband, I'm working on it. You know,
Okay.
sometimes we have a conversation that, you know, I don't know if I can share this story in 1 minute. I remember I was reading an article. He's a computer science, right? It's all left brain. So I was reading an article very, you know, almost 10 years ago about this Middle East woman who got a divorce, who moved to Israel, and then she came back to visit her family, and her cousin actually killed her, you know, shot her down in the town square. And because she got a divorce and it brought shame to her family. But the sad thing to me at that time was the mother, actually her mother, whom, you know, she came back for her to visit her, approved of this killing. So I must be in my menopause or whatnot. So I was crying, I was sobbing uncontrollably. And my husband just simply said that, well, don't you think that, you know, we have to make progress in every generation? I was so mad at him. I lashed out at him and I said, if you cannot, you know, have the emotional level at where I am feeling right now, then I want you to be quiet, you know? And then he was like shocked. He was like, well, I'm not going to say anything again. I said, that wasn't the point. The point was you did not engage at my emotional level. So you can tell that I'm a very emotional person.
I won't cross you. Okay. So when you came to the United States, you were 20 years old. You were an adult. You already were feisty, obviously.
No, I was very quiet. You
Oh,
know,
okay.
you know, education in Hong Kong, and no matter how empowered I was, I still was in the environment, you know, the Chinese traditional environment. So I watched and I was very quiet. I knew exactly what my teachers they were expected of, you know, they expect of me, and my parents, you know, what they expect of me. But I didn't know what I want. So I was still trying to find myself, even though I was an adult. But I knew that Hong Kong is not the environment for me. but I didn't actually become who I am until I met Professor Shrim, Barbara Shrim, and she's a Jewish woman, and she actually changed my life, you know. And you know, she's a, you know, Jewish woman, but she is a single woman. She adopted an African American child, Joshua, and she invited us, you know, the foreign student, to go to her dinner during the holiday. And I watched, I said, wow, and this cross-cultural adoption, this is the first time I saw it, you know, and I observed her and I observed how gentle, but also very powerful and strong she is, you know, and I took her class that was Introduction to Human Services. And it's sort of like a similar, you know, classes, and class participation is very important. It is like at least 50% of our grade, but I was not able to participate in the class conversation because I have not found my voice yet. It's not until one day she called me to her office and I knew I was in trouble. And she said that, well, Amy, you have not said a thing, in the classroom. And and this is what she said. 2 messages that changed my life. The first one is, Amy, your experience is just as important as everybody in this class. So she hold that space for me. She value my experience. It's not about knowledge, skills, but experience. And nobody has the same experience as I have, right? So she's very, and the second message is so powerful. She gave me the responsibility. And she said that, Amy, without your participation, this class will not be the same. You are going to make this class whole. So it is a responsibility and it's so important. As you know, from that day on, I have not been able to shut up and to participate because it is, I felt like it's not about me. It is really about the whole, how can I contribute to the whole, So
Let me pick up on that. Okay.
Okay.
So you trained as a psychotherapist.
Yes.
Okay. So what led you to found the Asian American Cultural Center?
Well, when I was in Boston, we have this South Coast Community Health Center, and they have 4 different units: the medical, the eye, and the dental, and the mental health, social service and mental health. And I was with that mental health and social service unit. And I realized that immigrants, people who didn't have the proficiency in language or the cultural proficiency, like I was exposed, to the Eastern culture and to the American culture in some sense. But there are a lot of immigrants who did not, get my experience, and they really, and also a lot of them, they came here because they marry into a family, especially women who marry into a family with the hope that she will be the bridge to bring her own family over. So a lot of them were very much alone, marry into the whole family. It's not just the husband, the in-laws, and the brothers and sisters of this husband. There's just a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah.
And children who were born in this country cannot communicate with the mother. So there was just a lot of mental health issues, but there's such a stigma, in our community to address the mental health issue, And so a lot of them did not get the early intervention. And so our job is to really set up some kind of a support group, like sort of informal type of group therapy with the teenager, because I didn't realize at that time that racism, actually, even in Boston, those teenagers, some of them are so angry, but they don't know how to articulate their anger to their family to address the discrimination that they experience at school, So we have teenager support group, we have women support group, and I do individual counseling as well. And I also guide a after school program, for the elementary school kids. So it made me realize, so this is another blessing that I have, so I feel like through my clients, I'm not living just one life. I'm living so many lives through their stories and through their experience and through their despair and their triumph, So it impacted me a lot. So I came down here. We didn't have an Asian American community per se. So actually I was working, but in Boston, I have encountered some cases of acquaintance rape, but that I was not prepared to deal with, the sexism, issue. So I wanted to educate myself. So I joined the volunteer at the Austin Rape Crisis Center because I want to get some education. So when they found out my background, they said, Amy, you have to work here, So I became the director of public education. So as the director of public education, my face is the public, So I organize event like Take Back the Night, event, and then dealing with the media. So I guess, people from the different government agency or school district found out that there's an Asian American, psychotherapist, social work type of people in town. So I got a lot of phone calls, from the school district, from the state hospital, from, different agencies. They have Asian client, they don't know how to, address the issue.
Right.
So at that time, I was thinking, because part of my job as the director of public education is every year we have to train 250 volunteers, to man the hotline and to accompany clients, victims, to have the rape kids and take them to court.
Yep.
So, so I felt like, okay, if I can train all these volunteers for the Austin Rape Crisis Center, I would like to come back, to my community and train people who speak different Asian languages, to train them, because you do need to have some kind of training as far as confidentiality, integrity, being a volunteer. So I wanted to train them, and send them out. So I actually wrote a 6 pages proposal to the city of Austin, asking them to give me a classroom of 500 feet because I cannot do the training at home. So I said I will volunteer my resources, because we don't have children. So my husband can certainly support me. I don't need to have a second income. So I said I will volunteer, but I didn't get my space, So I said, well, then I cannot. Well, and then, then I said, well, there's no leadership at city council. I ran actually for city council because I was so angry. But needless to say, I didn't win. But I didn't stop, because that is really my mission. I feel like we need to have a physical space so that we can build a community, and thankfully JCC at that time get Michael Dell to donate all this space for you to build a new campus at
I was the director of the Jewish Federation at that time.
Yes. And then this space on Jolly View is available. So I was given 3 months to raise $1 million, and I knew I couldn't do it with a capital campaign as a nonprofit. So I set up an LLC. But then we have a nonprofit, it's Asian American Community Partnership, that is a nonprofit that the nonprofit will organize all the annual event, for our community. And then the investor, the 19 investor, basically own the space, the property, and allow me to have this physical location to help build our community. And that was like April 2000, so it's over 20 years ago.
Wow. Let me shift our conversation because of time. Okay. Let's shift to the current situations that's facing Asian Americans and all Americans. Okay.
Yeah.
So how is the Cultural Center dealing with the most recent horrific surge in anti-Asian feeling, prejudice, hate, violence? How is that affecting the people at the center, the population in general? And what are you all trying to do to deal with it, particularly in terms of the mental health aspects of it?
Well, we have so many issues as far as mental health. Our senior citizens, are very lonely, and then on top of it, ever since the the virus, the COVID virus was giving a racial name, by somebody from the top. We got targeted, and I got phone calls, and my staff, myself, have experienced, people's glare, the verbal abuse and, all that. So I actually, I guess because of all these 20 years that I have been working with the city officials, I always participate every time they invite me to participate in task force working group in regard to the issues of PI people. I always attend. So I guess because of this relationship, I brought the issue of this Asian hate last year after the COVID-19 was giving a racial name. I brought it up to my council member, Allison Otter. I said, this is not okay, because we have family walking around the neighborhood and being run over by a car, and people, young people walking around downtown, and it was like calling all kinds of names, and children. So thank God, the city council actually passed a resolution in April 2000 to condemn, single us out, the hate single us out. So that was like last year, because we already see the hate is coming. And then of course, with the with the people from the top, the former president, of all this, like building all this hate, all this unkind lies, so so our folks in our community, especially our seniors, are being targeted, and you have seen it, all over the country. It is those who were reported is already over 4,000, but those are only reported, I am sure it is really tenfold more, because my staff, we don't have a big staff. All of them have experienced, people calling us names, yelling at us, or just give us dirty looks. How are we going to report that? It is like, is this okay for you just roll down your window and shouting at us, you Chinese virus, go home? And I was like, where is home? Those children who were born here, and I chose this to be my home. So for them to say that go home, and it is just like, where is home then? It is just mentally, that is a lot of stress, and you're talking about civil society. As a community, I believe we need to have some kind of standard. What is acceptable and what is not acceptable? We cannot just call fire in a theater when there's no fire, right? So, because that will instill fear in people. But when you're rolling down the window and calling out all these racial, racist remarks, that instill fear. When I was working at the Austin Rape Crisis Center, I said, well, we need to have a law against catcalling of women walking down the street. It is not okay for women to walk down the street without being harassed verbally. But at some point, I think we need to hold people in a higher standard, that whatever thoughts that you have, you cannot have behavior that affect the security, the safety of other people, because this will escalate. Words are not just words. Words can translate or can transform into bad behavior, and people can seriously get hurt, and you embolden violence, and you devalue another human being, and in a civilized society, we should not accept that. For the children in my center, I teach them Qi, C-H-I. Qi is like energy in Chinese, but I use the acronym Qi for civility, to respect, and H for humanity, to care, and I for integrity, to be honest and fair. So that should be, I think, our community standard. And whoever in violation of it should be held accountable. So I don't know if we can ticket them,
Let me ask you, for a person like myself or some of the viewers and so forth, non-Asians, okay, who are not being subjected to this, okay, what do you think we can do to be of help?
I think it is up to all of us to set up what a civilized community is about. So I think when you see someone like me, Asian get attacked, I think you should feel that this is not acceptable behavior for our community. So I think if all of us, if I see a child, I have done that, a child being, verbally abused by the parents, I step in, I intervene, and also with care to the parents. I know you're frustrated, but there are different ways, of dealing with this situation so that your child will not be traumatized, right? So I think it is up to us, to intervene when we see abuse, either verbal or physical, because we have to set the standard and say, this is not acceptable. This is not an acceptable behavior for our community. So can you imagine if somebody who did it the first time to an Asian person, Asian senior, and then 10 people around the seniors say, hey, this is not acceptable, I think this person will think twice about doing it. So I really think that when we see aggression, when we see discrimination, when we see racism, it is our responsibility to say that this is not acceptable.
Absolutely. And I think your message goes beyond just Asian Americans. It goes to all people that are subjected, women, Blacks, Hispanics, people that are subjected to this prejudice. So believe it or not, we have spent a lot of time chatting, and I'm going to invite you back for us to continue for some of the other things we want to talk about. But for this episode, I'd like to close with your thoughts on, given all that's going on right now, given the prejudice, the hatred, the violence, the increased sensitivity, at least among quote unquote good people, about what's going on. What does Asian Pacific Heritage Month mean to you?
Well, if you go to our website, you will see at least 20 links, of different Asian cultural performance. One of which I wanted to single out, and I think it shows what this month meant. Charles Yang, who was raised here, and he's a international acclaimed violinist. He actually used a Chinese piece for a Chinese instrument, pipa, a string instrument, and he presented with the Western instrument violin. But it is, so Charles, as a young man, he went to Juilliard for his music and, a master's degree. And he basically embraced, both of his culture, his Chinese heritage, using this Chinese piece of music and presented in a Western instrument. He's so wonderful, and I think that is what this Heritage Month is about, to embrace all that we are given, our heritage, to me, I am beyond just Chinese. I have the British heritage. I have, the Italian heritage from my Italian aunts. I have the American Bostonian heritage, and the Texas heritage, right? So I think that not to forget anything that you have experienced, that you have given, and also to share, and to share our experience. Like today, I really want to thank you for giving me the time and allowing me to share my experience with you, because my experience is not my own making.
No.
It was making out of so many people who have impacted me, either positive or negatively. There are always lessons to learn in all of our experience. And one thing that I wanted to really remind everybody that kindness is so important. I think we can choose. I think I have heard this story before, that we have from the Native American tales, that we have two wolves within us, the bad one and the good one. So which one do we want to feed? We feed the good one, the kindness will come out, So I think it's within our control, and we feel better about ourselves when we be kind, and how we can spread kindness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you are absolutely fascinating and compelling, and we will have another conversation as part of this show. So before I bring us to a close, are there any questions from our viewers right now? If you do, please put something in chat. Otherwise, we're going to bring this to a close. All right. So Amy, as I said, you are fascinating. I have enjoyed this very, very much. I think you've shared with us some very valuable lessons in general. And also, I think you've done a great job in helping people to appreciate, the cultural issues and challenges that you face, your community faces, and to some extent we all face. So I want to thank those here for watching and participating in civil society. I want to thank Kate Tolliver, as I always do, our managing producer, for her support. You can read more about Amy Mock and the Asian American Cultural Center and the Asian American Community Partnership, which we will have links to on our website, and the topics and issues that we just discussed, and view previous and future episodes of Civil Society at nonprofitaustin.org/civil-society. So you can go up there and view our shows on the Black community, the Hispanic community, the Asian American community in Austin. Again, thank you very much, Amy, and I wish you all a great, great day.
Happy Mother's Day. Goodbye.
All right, thank you very, very much.